pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being televised live online via the following web address, facebook.com/Millcreek OEM. The public will be able to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting by phoning in to this phone number, 833-1111, extension 318. Extension 380. If the line is busy, please try again. The Board of Supervisors will keep the comment period open until no further phone calls are received. This meeting is being recorded by WQLN and will be broadcast on Spectrum Channel 1024 and on YouTube.com with closed captioning available. With us this evening, myself, John Morgan, Township Supervisor, Vice Chair of the Board. Our Chairman, Jim Bach, is participating online, on the phone. Supervisor Dan Aled, also our Treasurer, Cheryl Williams, Solicitor Mark Shaw, Treasurer Mark Krzyzewski, Public Works Director Gary Snyder, and Director of Planning and Development Matt Waldinger. First item on the agenda is public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications. If anyone watching would care to comment on any item on our agenda, you may call in to 833-1111, extension 380 now. And we'll give a few moments for folks to call in. All right, hearing none, move on to item 4, approval of the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve this evening, the April 21st, 2020 regular meeting and our May 12th, 2020 emergency meeting.
Mr. Morgan, it's the May 12th meeting, not the April 21st. That's a typo. There were 2 on May 12th.
Lots of typos on this paper today. Any questions or comments on the agenda, on the minutes?
If I could, Mr. Morgan, just real quickly on the emergency meeting that was held on May 12th, just to let the public know that the supervisors approved the making of certain improvements to the municipal building to enable it to reopen to the public at a cost not to exceed $50,000, and also approved a budget amendment to pay for those costs out of a multi-use trail capital budget line item.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any further comments or questions regarding the 2 sets of minutes?
Mr. Morgan, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
All right, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Aled, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the approval of the bills. Are there any questions or comments regarding this week's batch of bills? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the bills?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
And Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Aled, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item on our agenda is the first quarter financial presentation. Mark Krzyzewski, Treasurer. Mr. Krzyzewski?
Thank you. In keeping with the program that I started a couple years ago, we're going to do the presentation for the first quarter of 2020. We're about a month later than we should normally be doing this, but trying to get some of the information together during the time the offices were closed, it was a bit of a challenge. So it's taken a bit longer than I would have liked, but we'll get back on track, starting with this first quarter presentation. The first slide is a revenue comparison of 2020 actual to 2020 budget. The real estate taxes, although they're chewing up a huge chunk of the total revenue for the first quarter, are about $85.6 thousand below budget. It's not to be of concern at this point. Some of this could be due to the slowness with the offices being closed, people not being able to get in to actually pay the taxes. It has caught up, and we're on target through April. May, I don't know yet because I don't have, Lynn hasn't really said much as how those are going. Income taxes themselves are almost spot on. They're only a few $100s off. The other taxes are $462,000 below budget. Most of that is due to the fact that the LST collections just really start for this calendar year in March. So there's a big gap between what we've collected and what we're supposed to collect by the end of the year. The real estate transfer tax is also a little bit slow in the first quarter. Now that is one that could be a possible concern as we go forward. We've got $800,000 budgeted for real estate transfer taxes for the year, and the impact of real estate sales, the COVID virus on real estate sales is truly unknown. So we may end up with a revenue shortfall there. We'll have to wait and see. It's just too early to gather any real data. It may be that the second and third quarters will be gangbusters, but until we get there, we really won't know. Grants, there's no income in the first quarter. That's because the biggest grant, state aid, doesn't happen until September. The Fireman's Relief Fund is about the same time. Those are two big grant items. And then other grants would be as incurred throughout the year. We just haven't closed anything out at this point. Other income, that's Fireman's Relief Fund, that's received in the third quarter. The administrative charges are also in the other. I did not get those billed until April, so they'll be in this, we may actually see two of those for Q1, Q2 for the next presentation.
Mark, the charges for services, what's that bit about again? I'm sorry.
Charges for services are things like streetlights, fines, permits. They're all just really starting up. The streetlights, the bills went out in mid-May, so the collections there are small.
Okay.
The other charges for services are things like parks and rec programs, which have been non-existent, because even with little revenue, we take it in Q1, we ended up refunding because the classes got canceled. So that one could be a bit of a challenge. At least the Parks and Rec part could be a bit of a challenge going forward. Mm-hmm. Comparison of 2020 actual to 2019 actual. The real estate taxes collections are a little bit behind last year, and that has any one of a number of variety of reasons. It has to do with just people getting around to paying the bill. The taxes, with the building being closed, it did slow the traffic down. There's a large group of the population in the township that likes to come in and actually pay their bill in person. And so those people were impacted by the building being closed in half of March. We had strong collections in April. The waiver penalty from the period of July 1 through the end of the year, it's probably going to cost us around $60,000 to $75,000 in real estate revenue. That all gets lumped into the same line item. The other elements of income are all pretty close to last year. Year-to-date expenses comparison, all categories are favorable to budget. The healthcare and pension costs are one of the reasons why the costs are favorable to budget, because we don't incur the pension cost until Q3, Q4, and the healthcare, it's a pay-as-you-go kind of program. As claims are presented, we pay them, and so we hope that what we do is we set our insurance broker sets up which would be like an insurance cost number, and that's what we put in the budget. If we're running favorable to that throughout the year, we'll always end up favorable in the healthcare costs. In comparison of 2020 actual to 2019 actual, the 2020 expenses are $27,000 lower than 2019 through K1. Public Works is a little bit higher by 105, and that has to do with just some of its reclassification from other areas, and then other is, and then administration is 143 lower. So we moved some numbers around between 2020 and 2019, so the actuals sometimes are going to be a little bit difficult to compare. Selected expenses, when we look at administration, salaries are slightly over budget, and that has actually to do with the 3 supervisors. Your salaries ended up set by the auditors higher than what we had in the budget, and it's going to have a few $1,000s impact throughout the course of the year. When we do the budget, we never really know what the auditors are going to do, and so I had put in a 2.5% increase, but they were normalized all the salaries, and so it'll be more reflective going forward. The other benefits go along with that. You've got FICA tax and workers' comp. If salaries are over, those expenses will be over as well. Healthcare costs are almost $46,000 higher. Part of that's due to transitioning claims experience out to the departments. The first couple of bills in the beginning of the year still had charges that were starting to be incurred and coded in 2019 before we started adding healthcare cost charges to each of the various departments, so that we have a better idea of what it truly costs to operate any one department. But the budget reflected the full value of having that move having taken place already. And then legal is showing almost $125,000 favorable, and that is in part because there's only two months worth of bills and 3 months worth of budget. But even if we consider the March bill, we're still about about $60,000 to $70,000 favorable. So we're in good shape there.
Here, I thought Mr. Shaw was doing us a favor or something. I didn't. We haven't gotten the COVID-19 bill yet from Mr. Shaw.
That was, part of it was in there. When I consider the March bill. Planning development, salaries are under budget by $800. There's currently at least one unfilled position in the department, so that'll get caught up once we fill that position. But I don't know if that's then go along with the salary cost. And healthcare is favorable budget by $9.6 thousand, and that is in part because there's some lag time in the healthcare costs, as stated with the admin. We get to public safety. Salaries are $183,000 under budget, almost $184. We had less overtime costs, and there's at least one lump sum payment that'll be in the works later this year. Its cost for the budget purposes gets spread out through the entire year, and so that'll have an impact. Healthcare is running $414,000 favorable, and once again, it's as incurred. So We may be favorable now, but maybe not so favorable down the road. Other benefits go along with the salaries. And then the fire department contributions are just under $31,000 below budget. And that's a timing thing. It really is on how diligent the fire departments are in getting the financial information in so we can release their LST monies. And not everybody's turned their stuff in yet.
Mark, I guess I noticed the public safety is, there's significant savings there. Is that a result of us setting a budget and then we did negotiate a pretty favorable contract for the township this year? Is that what that
There's
might be?
some of that element in there as well.
Okay.
So.
Kind of budgeted for the worst and got a good deal.
And end up where we ended up at, which is a good deal. Okay, Public Works, salaries are over budget by 55.7 thousand. No, it's under budget by 55.7, and that has to do with overtime costs. Other benefits were over budget, and that one I needed to do a bit more research, but I think it may just be a timing issue there. Healthcare was favorable, about 10,006 as incurred once again, and our snow removal expenses are showing about $122,000 over, and that's because we get paid for the salt in the first quarter, and we only get a quarter's worth of budget, so we'll catch up when we get to Q2 and Q3, because we hopefully aren't going to have to use any salt in those quarters. Public services, the Q1 salaries are under budget due to low operating levels, and the same is true with their operating costs. Mill and Fair run is most of the expense in terms of salaries there, and they run a light crew, if any crew, in the wintertime. And also, too, going forward, we're going to have an ongoing variance in salaries because there's a position in that department that the person in it retired, and the plan is not to replace that person. So there'll be some savings there, be reflected in next year's budget. Parks and Rec, salaries were under budget, 46.6. And that's largely due to the summer program help. It is incurred primarily in the summertime. So it's going to be in Q2, Q3, but the budget allocation is all is linear. Other benefits were under budget by 2.9. There aren't a whole bunch of benefits for the part-timers other than workers' comp and FICA costs. And healthcare is favorable to 11,200 due to costs incurred. The sewer revenue fund, revenues are down from 2019, but they're on track for budget. And there was some structural, I think there was like a developer's fee or something like that that was in there in the first quarter, so it has a bigger impact. Operating costs are over budget and are higher than 2019 actual. That's in part because the treatment charges were almost $136,000 over budget. That's in part because of the way that the city gets us the treatment cost numbers. They never get the numbers to us until sometime in the actual year. So we end up having to estimate what the treatment costs are going to be, generally using what the prior year numbers were. And this year, the city raised the treatment costs. I don't know how much that's due to capital in their plan for the treatment plant, but nonetheless, the costs are going to be over budget throughout the year. And then healthcare costs were $74,400 over budget because they had one shock loss claim in shock loss, stop loss claim in Q1. It was $105,000 worth of expense in the first quarter, non-recurring. And also, too, any expenses going beyond are covered by insurance, because we have insurance to cover any individual claim over $105,000. Administrative costs were on track in comparison to budget. Selected expenses, wages are $12,000 favorable. There's a couple unfilled positions. One of the unfilled positions is Dan's former position. So,
He's irreplaceable.
irreplaceable, yes. Maintenance repair is favorable, 16.2. That's just the luck of the draw. We didn't have any huge repair costs in the first quarter. And once again, budget for the worst and hope for the best. Utilities are slightly favorable to budget. System improvements were 13.7 favorable to budget. And that is mostly due to the fact that there were some finish-up items on the Lawndale extension that will be incurred in Q2 now that the weather's finally broken. In terms of the capital plan, we had a capital plan of $8,618,508. We've committed to date $570,145, leaving an uncommitted balance of $8,048,563. It's always kind of slow getting started in the first quarter, and also too, there should have been more time phasing on the $4.5 million capital plan for the bike path from around the Trek Center down to Presque Isle. We're not going to incur the $4.5 million this year in its entirety. Matter of fact, probably very little of it in comparison. So we're not as under budget as it may look. Questions?
Any questions from the board?
I don't have any. Thank you, Mark.
No.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Duszewski. Next item on our agenda is bids and quotations. The first is the 2020 Millcreek Township Paving Project Contract Awards, Department of Public Works. Mr. Snyder, you have a recommendation for us?
Good evening, gentlemen. As you know, on April 30th, we received sealed bids for our two paving projects, the east and west side. We received two bids on each of those. The west side, first one we had was McCormick Construction for $1,429,482. And the second one was Lindy Paving for $1,349,592.40. At this time, it would be my recommendation that we award the west side contract to Lindy Paving for the cost of $1,349,592.40.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Any questions or comments from the board on the west side paving contract?
None here.
No.
All right, is there a motion to award the west side contract to Lindy Paving for a price not to exceed, for the price of $1,349,592.40?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Morgan.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Mr. Snyder?
Yes, on the east side bids, it was the same two contractors that bid. McCormick Construction came in at $1,119,215.30. Lindy Paving came in at $1,079,941.40. It would be my recommendation to award the contract to Lindy Paving for the cost of $1,079,941.40.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Any questions or comments from the board regarding the east side paving contract?
No.
No.
All right, with that, is there a motion to approve the 2020 east side paving contract to Lindy Paving for the cost of the contract value of $1,079,941.40?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Roulette, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the flood detention.
Before we move on, in aggregate, those contracts are in excess of our liquid fuels budget. So we would need to approve a movement of, or have the general fund pay for the balance that, between the liquid fuels amount of $2 million roughly, and the awarded contract price, which is $2,430 some odd thousand.
Right, I guess I assumed that would cover the capital budget amendment request. Is that not
Well, it's
included
not,
this
the
evening?
problem is that the liquid fuels isn't capital. It's kind of a gray area, because we'd be taking money from capital plan and moving it to the liquid fuels fund. I didn't write specifically a capital budget amendment for those two items.
Well, Mr. Duszewski, you bring up your point. What would you like the board to do about your comment?
I would recommend that you take the shortfall, roughly $430,000, from the line item in the capital budget for the bike path, which had a total of $4.5 million, and then we'll have to put that money back next year, or whatever it's actually going to be spent.
Mr. Waldinger, your office is managing the multi-use trail project. Are you comfortable with that reduction?
Yes, we are. As Mr. Zaseshki mentioned, there is the full amount for design and construction in this year's budget. It's anticipated only the design funds will be spent in 2020.
Now, Mr. Bach and Mr. Roulette, we have discussed the possibility of allocating a bit more of general funds this year in the budget. We discussed a round number of $500,000.
That's right.
Is that consistent with what you gentlemen feel is an appropriate amount of general fund?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Yes, John, that's consistent with, I think, previous discussions we've had, where the bids came in. I think that's, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Well, is there a motion to amend the capital budget then to reallocate $500,000 from the Peninsula Drive multi-use trail project to the paving project? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to reallocate $500,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Lett, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Back to bids and quotations. Next item is the flood detention basin mowing quotations and award, Planning and Development Office. Mr. Waldinger.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Township Engineer Ann Sokol sought quotes for the mowing of 7 township-owned detention basins for 2 cuttings in the 2020 season. She received 2 quotes, one from Gerlach's Property Maintenance for $20,850, and the other from Manzi Services in the amount of $18,900. It is the recommendation of Township Engineer Ann Sokol that the bid be awarded to Manzi Services for $18,900.
Thank you, Mr. Waldinger. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, sir.
No.
Is there a motion to approve the FDB mowing contract to Manzi Services for the lump sum price of $18,900?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the Kronos hardware support quotation from the Administration Department. Mr. Dubchevsky.
Yes, this is an annual fee to provide support for the time clocks that we have, the two that are in the garages here and the one in the east side garage. This is a budgeted item in the administration's budget, and the total cost of the contract is $973.86. What it does is it provides replacement support for the clocks. If one were to die, they will overnight a new clock to us, so we won't have much downtime. That could be problematic in a larger department like the streets department, where lots of people have to punch in and out.
Any questions or comments from the board?
None here.
Mr. Dubchevsky, my only question, oh, sorry, Mr. Bach. My only question is this a new contract with them that has not been previously authorized?
No, it was actually incorporated into the contract in the last year, and now this is a ongoing annual support cost.
Okay, well, I don't have a problem voting on it, but wouldn't this be more of an operating expense that could be paid through the?
Yeah, but it
bill
requires
register?
somebody to sign for it, so,
Oh, they require annual signature authority? on it?
yes.
Fascinating, okay.
I know it's a small amount, it really, you ordinarily wouldn't see it on a meeting agenda, but somebody has to sign here for it, so.
Understood. All right. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
We need a motion.
I vote yes.
I think we need a motion.
Oh, I apologize.
I'll make
Is-
that motion.
Mr. Les made the motion. Is there a second?
I will second, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I also vote yes on that.
Brilliant. Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes for the $900 Kronos support services. Next item is a tailgate lift from the Public Works and Sewer Department. Mr. Snyder.
We are seeking permission to purchase a pickup tailgate lift for the sewer department. We received 3 quotes. The first one from Erie Truck and Trailer for the cost of $2,864 even. Tommygate, $2,623.94. And Omnigate for $2,679. We are asking to purchase the lift gate from Erie Truck and Trailer. These folks are the high quote out of the 3. Joe Yatzer, Bureau Chief of Fleet Maintenance, explains that the one requested can be transferred from truck to truck if we should need to change trucks or anything like that. The other 2 are truck specific. So if that truck would die, we would have to buy a new tailgate for that truck. Also, there's no freight charge from Erie Truck and Trailer. The other 2 quotes would not give us a freight charge unless we actually put an order in with them. So there was no way I could add a freight charge on those. There would also be an additional charge of $1,386 for installation from Erie Truck and Trailer, bringing the total to $4,250. It would be my recommendation to purchase the pickup tailgate lift from Erie Truck and Trailer for the cost of $2,864, plus adding in the installation charge of $1,386 for a total of $4,250. This is a budgeted item in the sewer revenue budget.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Any questions or comments from the board?
None here.
Mr. Bach?
No question.
All right, with that, is there a motion to approve the purchase and installation of the pickup tailgate lift from Erie Truck and Trailer for a total cost of $4,250?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is manhole frames, covers, risers. Department of Public Works, Mr. Snyder.
Yes, we are also seeking to purchase this for the sewer department. This would be a purchase of various sizes manhole frames, covers, and the risers for paving, quantities which are listed on the attached quote from LB Water under the CoStar's contract number 016026 for the price of $26,280. This is also a budgeted item in the sewer revenue budget. It would be my recommendation to purchase the manhole frames and covers and risers from LB Water under the CoStar's contract for the cost of $26,280.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Okay, it's a motion to approve the contract with LB Water under the CoStar's contract for a cost of $26,280. Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is capital budget amendments. This will be for the lift gate. Mr.
Yes.
Krzyzewski.
As we just heard, the lift gate was budgeted for $6,000 in the sewer budget. The cost for the lift gate and installation is $4,250. And that would leave $1,750 to reserve. And it would be my recommendation to amend the capital budget for the sewer department to reflect that accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Krzyzewski. Any questions or comments about the capital budget amendment?
No, sir.
Is there a motion to approve the amendment?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All right, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is subdivision and land development plans. And I guess, just for clarification, Mr. Walding and Mr. Shaw, are we taking public comments on these, each item separately?
Yes, we're required to.
Okay. First item is the Greenleaf Corporation Airport Hangar Land Development Plan. Mr. Waldinger.
Thank you. Yes, this is the land development plan to show the construction of a 12,000 square foot hangar with associated stormwater facilities and parking spaces located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Asbury Road and West 12th Street at the Erie Municipal Airport tract. The index number for this is 147004. And at their regular meeting of May 5th, 2020, the Millcreek Township Planning Commission recommended approval of this land development with the following conditions: that the Millcreek index number and a distance to the nearest fire hydrant be added to the plan. Since the Planning Commission meeting took place, the engineer for the plan has given us an updated plan that took care of those two items. I am going to let someone speak on behalf of this, but I do want to point out that there will also be a modification requested of the board, and I will come back and explain that after the applicant explains.
Good evening. You're on the line with the Board of Supervisors.
Good evening, this is Steve Helmy with Dyson Helmy Engineering. Tonight representing Greenleaf Corporation to present a land development plan for a new airport hangar on property being leased from the Erie Airport Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Halmy. You may proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. The new airport hangar is proposed to be 12,000 square feet. It is a 100-foot by 120-foot building with an entrance off of West 12th Street near the southeast corner of the intersection of West 12th Street and Asbury Road. As I mentioned, Greenleaf Corporation has a lease on this house aircraft. There is a small parking area proposed that will allow the users of the aircraft to park there. We are proposing stormwater management, for which we have submitted a stormwater management plan to the township and is currently under review by the engineer. And we did present this to the Planning Commission at their May meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Halmy. Mr. Walding, you mentioned there's a modification request.
Yes, there is a modification required to approve this land development plan as designed. It has to do with the stormwater management system. It's a proposed infiltration and detention basin that's immediately north of the proposed hangar. The stormwater management ordinance in section 116-24 says that stormwater detention basins are not to be placed within any yard setback within 20 feet of a property line or 20 feet from a structure. This basin, due to its location, would fall within all three of those locations. It is a small infiltration basin. It is designed to hold a maximum of 6 inches of water at maximum depth before it hits an overflow and discharges. This has been reviewed by both Greenman Peterson Incorporated, our third-party engineer, and Ann Sokol, our township engineer, and they both agreed that they see no issues in this instance with allowing this basin to be in this spot. But according to the ordinance, the supervisors would have to grant a modification to the ordinance in order to allow it.
Mr. Waldinger, do you or the Planning Commission have any concerns about that?
This item did not come up before the Planning Commission just because the stormwater management plan was not to that stage yet where this had been addressed.
Any questions or comments from the board?
No, John, nothing here.
Nothing here, no.
Mr. Chairman, if I could clarify, the reason that this location is necessary for this is because there's tarmac and paving on the other directions, and this would be the only place that they could put it that it wasn't in the airfield itself.
And I imagine the rationale for that part of the ordinance is to protect neighboring properties?
Yes, yeah, it's so that somebody doesn't build a pond right on the property line next to them. This would be closer to the right-of-way line.
Okay. Mr. Helm, is there anything else you'd like to add this evening, sir?
No, I don't believe so, unless you have any questions. I did have some difficulty hearing Mr. Waldinger's presentation. So if there's something I can add in regards to the modification of such, I'd be happy to.
I believe the board has a solid understanding of the request. All right. Well, Mr. Waldinger, at this time, should we open the line to other comments? And do we put Mr. Halmy on hold, or do we call him back?
Actually, no, we'll have to call him back.
Okay. Mr. Halmy, I apologize. I'll disconnect you, and we will give you a call back after public comment. And if there's any questions, we'll be sure to relay them to you. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. At this time, we will take public comment on the Greenleaf Corporation Airport Hangar Land Development Plan. Again, if you'd like to make comment on this, please give us a call at 833-1111, extension 380. And there is a bit of a delay in the broadcast. We'll give about a minute for folks to give us a call. Thank you. Okay, hearing none. Any additional questions or comments from the board regarding this land development plan? All right,
No, nothing here, John.
all right, is there a motion to approve the Greenleaf Corporation Airport Hangar Land Development Plan with the conditions recommended by the Planning Commission and with the modifications requested by the applicant?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Morgan.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Roulette, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Mr. Waldinger should notify Mr. Halmy now, or would you like to notify him after the meeting? Okay. Next item on the agenda is MCH Corporation Off-Site Parking Land Development Plan. Mr. Waldinger.
Thank you. Yes, this is the land development plan to show the construction of a 163-space parking lot with associated stormwater facilities located at the corner of Dudley Street, Peach Street, and Zimmerly Road in Tract 346. Millcreek Index number 725, 046, 048, and 060. And at their regular meeting of May 5th, 2020, the Millcreek Township Planning Commission recommended approval of this land development plan.
Mr. Waldinger, were there any comments or concerns made at the Planning Commission meeting? No. Well, good evening. You're on the line with the Millcreek Township Board of Supervisors.
Hello, this is Mike Sanford from Sanford Surveying, here on behalf of the applicant.
Mr. Sanford, nice to hear from you. Please proceed with your presentation.
All right, great, thanks. This land development plan is for the expansion of a parking lot for off-site use, other off-site uses. We did receive a variance from the Millcreek Township Zoning Hearing Board back in March of this year for the use. Access to the property will be by driveway from both Dudley and Zimmerly. No driveway from Peach Street. We do have the properties adjoining to the west are zoned residential, and we do have the required planting strip along that entire westerly side of 40-foot minimum green space. Within the parking lot, some of which exists and some of which will be expanded. But within the parking lot, we are providing the required end caps and planting islands and tree planting, all to meet the ordinance. Along the perimeter, some of the sidewalks do exist, but where they don't exist, we are proposing to extend them to limit of development. We're not aware of any modifications with our plan request, and both Erie County and your planning commission did recommend approval. So we're here tonight to answer any questions you may have.
Well, I guess, Mr. Sanford, the concern I have about this is putting, parking across a major thoroughfare from the rest of the LECOM campus. Is there anything planned or in the works for any kind of pedestrian improvements to assist in the in crossing Peach Street?
Yes, actually that's a great question. There are existing crosswalks at that intersection. However, the applicant did hire HRG from Cranberry, who are traffic experts, specifically to look at the pedestrian crossing and make any recommendations of how to enhance the intersection specifically for pedestrian crossing. That could be a combination of adding street lights directly over the crosswalk. It could be enhancing the striking. A lot of the striking right now is eradicated and it's just missing. So we've talked about enhancing the striping, maybe putting down a thicker stripe. But HRG is the expert for this, and they specifically hired them to take a look and give us ideas and tips of what we can do to promote pedestrian safety.
But there's no actual plan for improvements at this time.
Not yet. HRG is working on it actively.
Is
We certainly will share that plan with the engineering
They've worked on a similar intersection. The plan's not in place right now, but it is actively being worked on to promote better pedestrian safety, yes.
And would that be a proposal you would provide anticipating the state or the township to make those improvements? Or are those improvements that LECOM is committed to make?
No, it would be, well, the signal improvements have to be permitted by PennDOT, and the normal intersection now has to be maintained by the township, because PennDOT permits it, but the township maintains it. But in this particular case, if there are improvements, it would be on the applicant, Millcreek Hospital, to fund those, to put them in, whatever they may be, like I said, lighting, better striping signage. That would be on Millcreek Hospital to improve it. They're the ones looking to have the pedestrian crossing, so they would fund the improvement.
If they chose to do so, there's nothing actually obligating MCH to make those improvements, is that correct?
Well, they're committed to making them. I mean, it's something that they certainly, that they want to do. That's why we sought out HRG. That's why we already have them under contract to do that. To us, it's not a condition of approval. It's something that they're committed to do.
Any additional comments or questions from the board?
None here.
No, John, I think you brought up some good points with the pedestrian access, so that's definitely cause for thought, to say the least.
Well, I'm actually surprised the variance was granted, and I can't recall if we took an active opposition to that or not. But I do have some.
There was no opposition to it.
That property was rezoned. It was not a zoning variance.
Doesn't require a variance to have a standalone parking lot?
Oh, I'm sorry. They did rezone a portion of it and then got the variance for the standalone parking lot. I stand corrected. Both of those occurred on this parcel.
John, I couldn't hear what Matt said, but that's what the variance was for, to construct an off-street parking lot.
Thank you, Mr. Stanford.
This is Mike Redlock. I probably should, I don't know if you can all hear me on the phone from another location. Can you all hear me okay?
We can, Mr. Redlosk, yes.
Okay. So the current use of the property now is a parking lot. There's actually two different parking lots that we're combining on the site. And as Mike Sanford stated, to be able to use it in this way, we are working with PennDOT, or we're planning to. We work with DRT to work with PennDOT so that we can enhance that to the extent that PennDOT will allow us. So we're trying to do as much as we can do to enhance that crossing, which actually already exists, but we intend to enhance it, but since we can't control PennDOT or tell them, they have to allow us to do it. We'll be looking forward to working with Millcreek to support that. And it sounds like you do support it. So that is what we are hoping to do and planning to do it. And we don't know why PennDOT would not work with us to do it. We just don't have, we're not the experts on that. That's the consultant we hired.
Thank you, Mr. Redlosk. Well, with that, I believe, gentlemen, we'll have to let you go so we can open the floor up to public comments. If there's anything that we need further information from you on, we will give you a call back, if that's all right with you, gentlemen.
Yeah, that'll work. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good evening. And with that, we'll open up for public comment on MCH Corporation off-site parking land development plan. Again, the number to call in is 833-1111, extension 380. And there is a delay, so we'll give everyone a moment to call in. Thank you. All right, hearing none. Mr. Waldinger, my question for you regarding this land development plan is, does it meet all of the requirements of our land development ordinance?
Yes, it does.
Is there any reason to deny this land development plan?
No, not according to our ordinance.
With that, is there a motion to approve the MCH Corporation off-site parking plan? I'm sorry, parking land development plan.
Mr. Morgan, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Mr. Morgan, I will second.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Lett, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And gentlemen, I'll vote yes, because this does technically meet all the requirements. I do feel the township should have actively opposed the variance. However, I don't believe more surface parking is the highest and best use for property on Peach Street, and I am concerned about a trend of allowing off-site parking for development, especially when it's crossing one of the most highly trafficked thoroughfares in the township. So, but we did not oppose at the time, and there's no valid reason to vote no. So I will vote yes. Next item on the agenda, number 10, ordinance 2022, an ordinance to amend Millcreek Township zoning ordinance number 2011-8 as amended by changing the classification of a certain parcel of land situated in the Township of Millcreek, Erie County, Pennsylvania, described as follows, to wit: 1661 Dudley Street, 1665 Dudley Street, and 5312 Peach Street, Erie, Pennsylvania, now zoned C3 Highway Commercial District and R1 Single Family Residential District, requesting a change in classification to C2 General Commercial District. Mr. Shaw, I do believe this is just codifying previous action by the board.
That is correct.
Any questions or comments from the board?
No, John.
No, sir.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2020-2?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Roulette, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is ordinance 2020-3, an ordinance to amend the Millcreek Township zoning ordinance number 2011-8 as amended by changing the classification of a certain parcel of land situated in the Township of Millcreek, Erie County, Pennsylvania, described as follows, to wit: a portion of the property located at 5615 Peach Street, Erie, PA, now zoned C3 Highway Commercial District, requesting that approximately 2.7 acres of the property be classified as C2 General Commercial District. And again, this is codifying an action previously approved by the board, correct, Mr. Shaw?
Yes, that is correct.
Any questions or comments by the board?
No, sir.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2020-3?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Roulette, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is ordinance 2020-4. An ordinance to amend the Millcreek Township zoning ordinance number 2011-8, again, as amended by changing the classification of a certain parcel of land situated in the Township of Millcreek, Erie County, Pennsylvania, described as follows, to wit: Property located at 4659 West 12th Street and 4411 West 12th Street, Erie, PA, now zone C2 General Commercial, requesting a change of classification to I1 Light Industrial. Once again, this is codifying previous action by the board. Any questions or comments from the board?
No.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2020-4?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2020-R31, which was tabled from our May 12th, 2020 meeting. A resolution to approve application for county aid from the County Liquid Fuels Fund for 2020 for bridge inspections. Gentlemen, you might recall that I requested this to be tabled for further clarification from the county and from PennDOT's Municipal Services to what the nature of this application is for. As I tried to explain in the last meeting, there is federal law requiring inspection of any bridges over 20 feet in length. Millcreek Township has several of those that are required to get federal inspections. Those inspections are reimbursed 80% by federal grants. 20% is to be covered by a local entity. The county has historically provided that service on behalf of all 38 municipalities in Erie County and covered that 20% match. In recent years, the state has taken over that contract. So PennDOT covers the full amount and has been deducting 20% from our liquid fuels allocation. After discussions with the county, what they've determined is that the way to reimburse us those costs, because it's still the county's intention to pay for that local match, is that the county will reimburse us the costs of those municipal bridge inspections from their county liquid fuels funds. Apparently, this is the first reimbursement through this new procedure for 2 inspections that were performed last year.
Okay.
Further, the county owes us approximately $5,000 from previous years. In speaking with the Erie County's coordinator, apparently a letter was sent to the township at some point, probably in March, and whether through miscommunication or error during this pandemic time between one of our staffs, I guess that letter hasn't made it to the board yet. But there was instructions on how we can request that additional $5,000. That will be provided to us shortly. Probably so our next meeting we can approve an invoice to the county for the remaining costs of the old bridge inspection funds that they can reimburse us for.
Okay.
But this is for the new process they've starting this year. So that's what this action is for. Is that clear as mud, or?
Yep. Sure is.
Yeah, very clear.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. So, with that, is there a motion to approve the application for county aid for the county to reimburse us $1,407.14 for local bridge inspections?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 2020-R32, a resolution pursuant to Resolution 2015-R20 and the Municipal Records Manual to approve proposed disposition of certain township records. And this evening, those records will be authorizing the deletion of dash cam videos that meet their retention date between the dates of May 27th, 2020 and June 9th, 2020. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2020-R32?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is Resolution 2020 R33, a resolution of the Township of Millcreek, Erie County, Pennsylvania, establishing an intermunicipal agreement with the Townships of Harbor Creek, Fairview, Summit, and Greene, and the Borough of Wesleyville for the provision of building code officials, construction code official, inspection, plan review, and related services for administration of the Uniform Construction Code. I'll throw it over to Mr. Shaw.
Yes, this is an agreement, deals with an agreement with building inspectors, underwriters to perform code review and inspections on behalf of the township and several other municipalities. Currently, the township, along with Fairview and Harbor Creek, have a joint agreement with BIU to perform building code review, issuance of building permits, and inspections of building construction. That current agreement expires at the end of July 2020. In February of this year, Harbor Creek put together requests for proposals, which were advertised seeking parties to submit a proposal to provide those services after the current contract expires. After publishing the RFP, the only party that responded was BIU. After some negotiation with BIU on various terms, the parties arrived at a final agreement to be considered by all of the parties. The final agreement is attached as Exhibit A to the resolution, which authorizes the board to execute the agreement. I would recommend approval of this resolution and execution of the agreement. A few highlights of the agreement. It sets forth a detailed schedule of fees to be paid by parties who seek to have their building plans reviewed and permits issued, as well as fees for various required inspections. In general, the fees have increased, but it's my understanding that it has been a number of years since such fees have increased. In addition, the agreement contains enforceable time limitations on the time it takes BIU to review these plans and to conduct inspections. And lastly, it allows the parties to renegotiate if the state passes any laws that may impact the agreement and how building plans may be reviewed or processed in the state.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any questions or comments from the board?
Not here.
All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2020 R33?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second that, John.
All right, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I will vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2020 R34, a resolution granting an extension to the expiration date of each mobile home license currently set to expire on June 30th, 2020. Is this for Mr. Shaw or Mr. Waldinger? Mr. Waldinger it is.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Yes, as you mentioned, per Millcreek Township Code Section 70-30A, manufactured home parks are required to obtain an annual license with the township. And under Section 70-30D, the licenses are valid for a period of 1 year beginning July 1st and expiring June 30th of the following year. As we have licenses set to expire on June 30th, and because of the disaster declaration of emergency by the township and by the Commonwealth and the stay-at-home order where the township was operating under reduced operations, we have asked the board to grant an extension of the current licenses past June 30th. So all licenses issued to mobile home parks in Millcreek Township that would expire on June 30th will be extended until August 31st, 2020.
Any questions or comments from the board?
None here.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2020 R34?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next is Resolution 2020 R35, a resolution to amend Resolution 2018 R8 to include fees associated with licensing and inspection of mobile home parks. Mr. Waldner giveth, and you taketh away.
Yes, thank you. Again, in regards to the mobile home park licenses, the township has done a study. Our former chief code inspector, Caleb Dixon, tracked all of the charges for the last couple of years to determine the true cost of performing these inspections and granting the licenses to the mobile home parks. Currently, the mobile home park license fee is a $25 flat fee per park. This resolution would amend the current fee resolution to add in an annual license fee for a mobile home park of $50 and an annual inspection fee for a mobile home park of $5 per lot. And that would take effect with the new licenses that would be issued for the 2020-2021 year.
Any questions or comments from the board?
No, sir.
Mr. Waller, my question is the fee due at the time of renewing the permit, or is it due at the...
The fee is due with the application for the license.
Okay, so in August is when it's due.
Actually, the applications will be due back July 1st to give us time to perform the inspections in order to be valid, at the beginning of September.
Understood, thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2020-R35?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote, Mr. Lett, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is Stormwater Management and Maintenance Agreement request from West Ridge Estates, Robert W. and Elise E. Sessler, developer. Mr. Waldinger.
Yes, thank you. This is for the land development for the apartments at West Ridge Estates on West 26th Street. The developer has submitted a stormwater management plan that has been reviewed by GPI, our third-party reviewing engineering firm. That has been approved by them, and the developer has submitted a stormwater maintenance agreement to be bound to maintain that system once it's installed. So at this time, I'd like to ask the board to approve the stormwater management plan and to accept and sign the stormwater maintenance agreement with the Sesslers.
Any questions or comments from the board?
None here.
Is there a motion to approve the stormwater management plan and maintenance agreement for West Ridge Estates, Robert W. and Elise E. Sessler?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item on our agenda is exclusion from development request, Kearsarge Plaza, 5130 Peach Street, LLC. Mr. Waldinger.
Yes, thank you. The developer, 5130 Peach Street LLC, is asking an exclusion for land development plan for their property at Kearsarge Plaza, which is at 5130 Peach Street. Their plan is to construct an 8,960 square foot addition, which would replace a portion of the structure that was damaged by fire in 2019 and subsequently demolished. This addition is actually smaller than the original fire damaged structure, and we do not have a land development plan on file. By the township ordinance, they would be permitted to replace the structure as it sat originally. They're actually proposing a slightly smaller structure to give them more room around it because the old structure pretty much filled up the entire property, so they're adding some additional setbacks. So this is slightly smaller. Again, they are permitted to rebuild in place. We just felt procedurally and in the sake of transparency, it was best for them to apply for a land development exclusion in order to proceed.
Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Waldinger, isn't there a time, there has to be within a certain time limit before those rights expire, isn't that correct?
They have to begin construction within a year of demolition. Yes, the fire was May 14th of last year, the actual fire, and then there was a subsequent condemnation process and discussion and then demolition, yes.
Okay. All Is there a motion to approve the exclusion from development request from Kearsarge Plaza, 5130 Peach Street LLC?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Roulette, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. All right, next item is communications, treasurer communications. Mr. Jakszewski, do you have
Nothing
anything to
further
add?
at this time.
Thank you, sir. Hiring request. I can't recall. I thought we already approved this previously, Mr. Waldinger. All right, well, you have the floor, sir.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, this request is to fill a full-time position in the Planning and Development Department. It's a conversion, actually, of a part-time position to a full-time position. Our recommended candidate is Matthew Puda for the job title of Planner GIS Specialist. His start date would be today if the board approves. He is currently, as I mentioned, a planning assistant with Millcreek Township. He has been here for 2 years. He also worked for Erie County as a GIS intern. He has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a minor in GIS from Edinburgh University. Matt has been a great addition to us on a part-time basis, and we look forward to having him with us full-time and getting a lot of projects out of him.
Any questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the hire of Matthew Puda as the Planner GIS Specialist at a rate of $42,732 annually?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
All right, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Roulette, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Seasonal hiring requests, Public Works Department. Mr. Snyder, do you have those, or? All right. Okay, we got a couple of them. This is from Diane Lyons. The request is for seasonal help. The first is in our Building Maintenance Bureau, requesting approval to rehire a seasonal employee. Name is Ian Steff. Effective hire date would be May 27th at a rate of $9 per hour. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve the hire of Ian Steff as seasonal Building Maintenance Bureau laborer at a rate of $9 per hour?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Roulette, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next is a seasonal hire request in the Sewer Maintenance Bureau. This would be to hire Nicholas Langford at a rate of $10 per hour with a hire date of May 27th. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, is there a motion to approve the hire of Nicholas Langford as a seasonal Sewer Maintenance Bureau laborer at a rate of $10 per hour?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I will vote yes.
Mr. Roulette, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is a virtual conference request, zoning and development officer. Sounds like a fun time. Mr. Waldinger.
Yes, thank you. This request is for Matthew Puz Jr.
You got like a headset and stuff too?
Maybe, I'm not sure. To attend the National Virtual Conference for the Association of State Floodplain Managers. Matt is a certified floodplain manager and is the floodplain manager for Millcreek Township. He does have the opportunity this year to attend the national conference since it's being held virtually. There are no travel costs associated. The cost is $300 for members, of which he is a member, and he will receive 12 continuing credits, which will go towards maintaining his certification. There is money available in our training budget, and there are no additional travel costs, so I would recommend approval.
Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, so he's not actually going anywhere. So we're not approving him to go anywhere, just for him to log into a big, long WebEx.
That's correct.
Is there a motion to approve Matthew Puzz logging into a couple of online meetings?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second, sure.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Is he requesting to attend that from home? He's not. Yes. Next item is executive sessions. The board did hold executive sessions to discuss various personnel and legal issues on May 13th, 14th, 15th, and the 21st. Next item is the fire police requests. Mr. Bach, do you have a copy of that, or Mr. Olet?
I do, John. I can handle those. There's two requests. Both we got night. One came in today, pretty late. Both same location, same department. He's requesting approval for the Westbridge Fire Department to assist with traffic control at the Westminster Church on May 22nd. May 26th, and also on June 9th. I believe these are events associated with one of their food pantry distributions there, located in the chosen parking lot just to the north of the church. I believe there's two fire police officers that provide just some traffic control there as a added safety feature for those Tuesday events at the pantry. I'll put that in the form of a motion.
And I will second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Solicitor communications.
Nothing further in mind?
Okay. Student ambassador recognition. We want to cover that, or?
I can cover it. We had two student ambassadors with the supervisors during our meetings here over the last school year. They were Nina DePlacido and Evelyn Moore. Unfortunately, due to the COVID outbreak, they haven't been able to attend meetings with us, but they'll be graduating, and Nina's plans are to attend Mercyhurst University and major in hospitality management with a concentration in event planning. Evelyn Moore is going to attend Penn State as part of the Schreier's Honors College with an intended major of mathematics. It was a pleasure working with both of these young ladies, and of course we wish them well in their future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Olet. Now, with that, any further business, gentlemen? Ms. Williams? Okay, with that, we'll open for public comment, citizens to be heard. If anyone watching would like to address the board with any of their questions or concerns, you may do so now. Again, the number to call is 833-1111, extension 380, and we'll give a moment for folks to call in. Thank you. Hearing none. With no further business to attend to, is there a motion to adjourn at 8:26 PM?
Mr. Morgan, if I may, real
Oh,
quick here.
apologies.
I'd like to take a moment to recognize the passing of one of our longtime township employees over this past weekend, and that was Terry Craker. Terry's worked for the township for a good number of years, starting out in the streets department and most recently working in the sewer department. I personally worked with him over the last 12 years, and it truly was a pleasure to work with him. Great person to talk to, and he always had commentary on no matter what the topic was, and very outspoken, but he'd let you know how he felt about things, and he was just a great guy. And I'd like to extend, on behalf of the township and its employees, our condolences, our wishes, and to Terry, his wife Lynn, and their families.
Thank you, Mr. Olet, and I want to extend our condolences to you and your team down there in Seward as well. A lot of guys who are really close with Terry, and sure, it's not just his family, there's a lot of folks here in the building hurting, and we'll be praying for comfort and peace for all those folks. With that, I guess I'll now call for a motion to adjourn at 8:28.
So moved.
Is there a second?
So moved. There's a second.
All right, we are adjourned.